G'day fellow bookworms, my name is Caroline and this is Top 5 Wednesday. This week's topic is favourite villains, which is awesome because there are actually a lot of books where I prefer the villain to the hero. A lot of the time villains are more complex and interesting. I love reading their backstories and finding out that maybe they think they're doing the right thing and have kind of just gotten lost along the way, or they're a victim of their bad upbringing or something like that. That being said, there are some villains that I love purely because they're like batshit crazy. Coming in at number 5 is President Snow from the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. I actually preferred his character in the movies to the books, but let's be honest, everything was better in those movies. Anyway, he's not a character who's particularly redeemable, but I really love him as a villain because he has this presence that can be felt throughout the series, and it's really ominous and kind of dark. It feels like he's everywhere, but I love it. Number 4 is Kira from Death Note. This is a manga series where basically our main character Light finds a death note which has been dropped by one of the gods of death, and if he writes a person's name in that death note, then they will die. So he kind of takes it upon himself to start killing criminals, and he sees this as the right thing to do, but also he's killing people, which is a very villainous thing. I just love him because I was so conflicted throughout this entire series. I couldn't decide if he was doing the right thing or if he deserved to be caught for killing people, and it's just really interesting because a villain shouldn't be 100% evil. They should be complex and interesting, and throughout this entire series I definitely thought he was. Coming in at number 3 is the Darkling from the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, and unfortunately I can't say heaps about what it is that makes him a good villain because a lot of his development occurs towards the end of the series. But I just loved him because he wasn't a horrible person. He always did what he thought was best, and even though he wasn't right very often, I could understand where he was coming from, and I think that's really important. Number 2 is Negan from the Walking Dead comic series by Robert Kirkman. If you're a fan of the show, you know why Negan is such a big deal. I'm actually way past the show in the comics now, and I love Negan's entire character arc because I just think he's a really interesting villain. He's pretty crazy, but I like being able to draw parallels between him and our main character Rick. Both of them are willing to do anything to protect their group, and although Rick never does anything nearly as crazy as Negan, he's also done some pretty horrible things to protect his family. The other thing I love about Negan, more in the comics than the show, is that he's quite a reasonable person. Obviously, he does that one really big crazy thing that I can't say because spoilers, but after that in the comics he's actually quite like charismatic and charming and reasonable towards the group, and I really like that because he seems like one of those guys who, if it wasn't the zombie apocalypse, he actually would have been pretty cool, but instead it's the zombie apocalypse and he's like batshit crazy. Coming in at number 1 on this countdown of villains is the Lord Ruler from the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. Again, I can't say heaps about what it is that makes him such a great villain because a lot of his development does occur towards the end of the series, but basically he's just super complex and interesting, and we get to know more and more about him as the series progresses. We learn about his backstory and realize maybe he wasn't as much of a bad guy as we thought. By the end of the series, I won't say he was likable, but he definitely wasn't the worst character in the series. He was just really interesting, and I think that's an amazing thing for a villain to be, is that they start as like super villainous and by the end you're kind of like, oh, maybe they weren't that bad. But I guess that's just another amazing thing about the Mistborn trilogy. There we go, those are my top 5 favorite villains at the moment at least. Let me know down in the comments who some of your favorite villains are because I'd be really interested to know. But anyway, that's the end of this one, guys. I upload videos Wednesdays and Saturdays, so be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned on those days for more bookish goodness. Toodaloo!